All right, there we go.
Boom!
What's going on, everyone? This is TK here with another episode of Talk to TK, and we have Coach Ernie Williams here again for part two of a four-part series where we're going to be talking about the different aspects of playing sports and dealing with being overseas or injuries and just really focusing on the mentality that you have to achieve the goals that you're trying to achieve at the professional level, at the college level, for whatever sport it is you're trying to play. So, Coach Ernie Williams, again, I welcome you to the show. Thanks for being with us tonight. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for inviting me back again. Round
Absolutely.
two.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know, Coach Ernie Williams is an athlete that I have played against many, many times in my career. She is a McDonald's All-American. She played at University of Texas, Austin, had a great career, went on to play overseas for 7 years in various countries and had a great, great career across the board. And now she is out coaching and giving back to the youth of this generation. And so today we are going to be talking about your mentality around injuries. And as an athlete, injuries are bound to happen. Nobody wants them to happen, but that's kind of how it works. It's the nature of the game. So, Coach, let's just start out really quick with talking about some of the injuries that you have had. I know you've had some, and they're not always fun, but let's hear what kind of injuries you've had throughout your career.
Well, let me get my together.
That long, huh? That long of a list?
Yeah, I'm telling you. So really, I really had probably just ankle rolls and then ACL tears. I've had those surgeries, reconstructive surgery on both knees, and then I've had some meniscus repairs and cleanups. And then the other surgery I had to have was for a shoulder surgery. My labrum tore, and they had to just make that joint smaller and pull it back together. And then I had to just recover from there. So, ankle, knee, shoulder, boom.
Okay. Head, shoulders, really, knees, and toes, right?
Yeah. And then I think I bumped my head a couple times too, taking some charges. So.
Okay. Yeah. So the injuries that I've had 2 knee surgeries.
Man.
Yeah, nothing as serious as ACL, so I was very fortunate in that aspect. But I did tear my meniscus in high school, and I did have to do some reconstruction because my patella tendon kept slipping out of place. So I had to get those fixed, but nothing that kept me out for years or extended periods of time. And then I battled with a really, really bad ankle sprain as well, to the point where when I was not playing, I was required to be in a boot. And I had to get special tape just because I tore all the tendons in my ankle. So essentially, whenever how they do the ankle test, and essentially what happened was my ankle was completely doing this whenever they would test my ankle. Super painful, not fun to deal with. So those were my 3 pretty big injuries throughout my career, but nothing that just was like, oh man, I'm never going to play again. No, nothing like that. So very fortunate there. So when it came to your injuries, what were your immediate reactions when you found out the severity of your injury, especially around your ACL and having to have your shoulder reconstructed, all that stuff? What was your immediate reactions and thoughts?
Okay. So my immediate reactions and thoughts were kind of different as I went through my career. So I'll start with the first one, which was my left ACL. I tore that as a freshman in high school, and it was like maybe a regional game or something before state. So I missed out on freshman state. But I had never really had an injury. I maybe twisted an ankle, not like a quick tweak, nothing else. Right up until that point. So I had no clue what was going on. When I tore my ACL, what was happening was I was dribbling the ball up the court from the left side of the back court into the front court, kind of going diagonally to the right towards our bench. And then all of a sudden, I just took a step. I wasn't getting pushed, like just dribbling the ball up the court. I took that last step with my left leg, and my foot just stuck in a weird way. My knee wobbled and I crushed down to the floor. And I was like, it hurt. It hurt. And then people that tear their ACL will know, like, it hurts very quickly. And then when you sit down on the bench and you start walking around, it feels like, oh, okay, I don't know what happened. Maybe I can play. But then when you do certain things, it's like, I don't know.
There it is.
It's very weird feeling. It's a quick pain, and then after that, it might swell, but then there's not any real pain after that. It kind of like, you think you can play. So my reaction to that, like, my head coach had, she was friends with the OU, the doctor at that time, the surgeon for OU women's basketball. So I went to see him that next morning. We drove down from Tulsa to Oklahoma City, and I got the MRI. We just had a confirmation it was torn. And so, nobody wants to hear for your first injury, that real injury, that, hey, it's going to take at least 9 to 12 months to come back from this. You're going to be out. So lucky for me, I was out this summer, that summer into the next year, which I was able to play. I was actually able to play in AAU at the end, like right into nationals, and I was ready to go.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly what I did for recovery and rehab, but I definitely worked with some therapists. But I remember being ready to go in AAU for that national tournament.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. I've been around teammates who have torn their ACLs before, and I know a lot of people say that they can hear this pop that happens whenever you tear your ACL. Even if you tear like your Achilles, you also can hear like a pop because it's a tendon. It's a ligament. So you can hear that. Did you hear that sound, or you don't remember?
I think it's more of a feeling.
Okay.
Like, I've heard people say I heard it, they heard it, but it might be simultaneously. But yes, you either heard a pop or you just felt it. Like,
yeah.
Like, oh.
That doesn't sound right.
It's not cool. It's not cool at
right.
all.
No, understood. Okay, so just sticking with that injury for now,
yep.
As you were going through rehab and you had the surgery, do you remember any of your mentality, your mindset? How did you feel about yourself, maybe confidence-wise, as you were going through rehab? Did it like set you back mentally or anything like that?
Well, yeah, I think, of course, for my first one, because it's an unknown process.
Mm-hmm.
And you're listening to doctors that say, rehab therapists that are saying, hey, it's going to take from eight months to a year to be able to play, to come back normal. So after kind of grieving and getting over the fact that, hey, it's going to be 8 months, it's going to be 12 months. Hey, my goal was like, you said 8 to 12. Oh, I only heard 8. So let me get on this grind. Tell me what to do. After you get past that stage of like, oh my God, woe is me. Okay, what do I need to do? How many times a day do I do it? How do I do my exercises? So I was just once I could transition over, it was just like my competitive mentality. Okay, my thing was like, okay, I don't want this to beat me. I don't want to quit. I'm not a quitter. And it wasn't like kind of a negative tone like that. It was just like, okay, I got to get back. I got to show people I'm strong. I got to show it to myself. Mm-hmm. I got to get back to my AAU team and my school team. I'm strong and I can get through this. And then it's like after that, it's like, okay, that proves to me myself that I'm a strong athlete. I'm a competitor. I can do it. Right. Kind of like that.
So for the athletes out there who are dealing with injuries or who have dealt with injuries, you're on the verge of coming back. Some key things that was just mentioned was the competitive nature in you came out, and that's what really helped you get through your rehab. It's almost like that became your your game day, because you had to perform and do your exercises and be consistent with your exercises and be consistent with your routines and your checkups. You had to be intentional about how many times a day you were doing them, the intensity level in which you were doing them. All of that stuff is things that you do when you're practicing with the team, as well as when you have to rehab. So it's not like you just get this to just coast through the rehab or coast because you're not physically playing. No, you are preparing, but in a different way. Your mentality has to be the same, if not more, because it's all on how you choose to go through rehab. What is your thought process after you get past the woe is me, which whenever you get injured, I've had those thoughts like, why me? I was having such a great, season, or we were doing so well as a team. Why did this have to happen? After you get past all of that, you really have to focus on what is it going to take to get you back on the court playing. And then not just that, but also what does it take to get you back to playing at the level you were playing at or better? And so tell me about how that transition felt for you when you were going from, okay, I'm 100% released to play. What was your mentality? How did you feel? Were you nervous? What did that feel like as you were released to play and now you're back in practice, back in the games?
Definitely was happy and excited to get that okay from the doctor and the therapist. Now, that next step is, okay, when I get out there, of course, they start you with non-contact, right? So the drills that you are doing, your conditioning drills, of course.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. So your offenses, maybe your defenses, and just positioning, but never where you are 1-on-1, 2-on-2. We're not playing against each other. I couldn't be on those until of a certain point. Right. So that's how you get your confidence back, and you go in these stages of getting back to that full game, which first is just non-contact. And then as I moved through that stage, it was always staying in tune with my body. What level was my pain at out of a 10? And you have to be real with yourself. I think as much as I could at, how old were we? Freshman, 15, 16, as much as I could, not fight through pain, but be able to deal with, I guess, the right amount, which was, there's going to be a little bit of pain, little awkwardness coming back because you haven't run and jumped and grabbed the rebound like that for a while. So just really taking my time and not putting extra pressure on myself. And then, as time went on, I did have a brace, I believe. As time went on, you get stronger in your confidence in your skill, and then you get stronger in your confidence in your body to be able to physically hold up for you to show your skill. And then little by little, you're balling, you're out there doing your thing. And when you're playing basketball, you're not thinking about your knee. But it does take some time to play ball and close out to somebody and not really think about, oh, should I go faster or should I hold back? After a while, you kind of just, you play your game or you practice and you're like, I didn't think about my knee too much today. Or it gets better and better and better. I was going to say, I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. So when you talk about confidence, and there's two things that I guess I really took away was confidence and honesty. And being honest with yourself, being honest with your trainers and the doctors, and letting them know where your pain tolerance is, letting them know how it really felt. Because that honesty is the key. You can't be in such a rush to get back that you aren't honest with the people who are trying to help you come back healthy, to the point where if you're not honest with them, you could actually re-injure yourself or make it worse and set yourself back. So really understanding and being truthful with where you truly feel in that space. And then the other thing that you brought up was confidence, and slowly gaining the confidence back as you continue to go through rehab, as you continue to do the non-contact drills, and then the conditioning drills, which everyone just loves to death. The best part of practice, right? So allowing yourself to be confident and maybe planting on that leg or putting more weight on that leg. So what were some of the self-talk things that you had to tell yourself, or was it strictly just you mentioned quite a bit about not thinking about it? What was more productive for you, or did you have to work up to not thinking about it and things like that?
Yeah, I think that I worked up to not thinking about it so much through those shooting practices on my own when I go do my workouts and my shooting, in my defensive drills and my rehab. I continue rehab though. You know, your rehab doesn't stop even though you are released to play. So that's also putting the work in and getting used to the movements. Like I said, practice, non-contact, and then getting into those little situations of, okay, let's play. We can play 2-on-2 or 1-on-1. It's just everything works together, and it's a gradual incline of your confidence. So I don't know. I can't remember from freshman year, you know, when it clicked, but it was just so gradual. And of course, that's not just up. Some days, because you didn't play well, it might have felt like, oh, I had that obstacle, that kind of plateau. And then when the skills would show, it was like, okay. You know, so it's up and down, just like if you weren't hurt and you're playing in the season and you're trying to get better with your skills. Kind of the same thing.
Right. Understood. Yeah, that was definitely, for me, something that I struggled with was coming off of a really, really, really good season or starting the season off and getting injured, and then you're out for the rest of the season and you were doing so well. So having those thoughts of the woe is me and working back into your confidence through rehab, through time. Time is the one thing that when you have an injury, you have to sit in that patience. You have to sit in that time of healing because your body needs it. Your body needs to recover. You need to recover mentally. You need to recover physically. You need to gain that confidence back. And just like Coach Ernie said, it's definitely a gradual day by day process. It's not go from 0 to 80 and then you're at 100. No, some days you're going to feel 100 and some days you're going to feel 40. And then the next day you may feel 60 and the day after that you feel 100 again. It truly is just all over the map until you get back into the rhythm of being on the court, being on the field, whatever sport it is that you play, until you get back into that rhythm of doing basketball activities fresh off of that injury. And it's not easy. And something that I know I struggled with was one of my injuries my sophomore year of high school. I guess I didn't mention this and I forgot. My sophomore year of high school, I got kneed in my thigh, and so I had a really deep thigh contusion, and I couldn't bend my leg. I had basically zero range of motion. And so the thought that went through my head was, well, what if I can never use my leg again, like walk normal? What if I always have a limp? What if this? What if that? And once we were able to get with the doctor and get with the rehab therapist, we were able to identify the different ways that I would be able to learn how to get my range of motion back. And I was devastated that I had to miss the rest of the season. But in the longevity of my career, what I learned was that even if an obstacle is in my way, I know that mentally I can overcome it, just like what you were saying. And also, I learned that I had to be a leader from the sidelines.
Yeah.
And that looks very different than being a leader while you're in the game, competing with your teammates, practicing with your teammates, and feeling some of the pressures that come with being in close games and big games and all of that. So I'm curious to know, how did your leadership style change as you were working through these injuries?
Good question. So I'm going to fast forward to college where, again, freshman year, I tear my right ACL. We were playing Duke. I was hyped. We had two freshmen start. I think it was me and then Carla Cortijo from Puerto Rico. She played on national team, so I think she started with me. Anyway, we gonna win that game. Come on, man. I got a fast break. Still, I was going down to get the bucket, and I physically did not have I had gas pedal, I had acceleration, but I did not have deceleration. Okay. So as I'm going fast as I can up for that layup, my body is not trained well enough to stop and slow down and absorb force on my landing. So I land on my right leg, and on the landing, I tear my ACL. So from then on, so my leadership style changed as a freshman, right? So I'm coming in trying to give value to the team in a physical way. Now I have to change and go to the bench and really learn how to lead, learn how to still be vocal, still be valuable to the team, still be engaged and learning, because this is still a process for me to learn what my coaches are about, what they're asking for, what our offenses are. Our system is not really going to change to next year. It's going to be probably the same thing. And I need to know these things, but I also need to be able to help my teammates realize what's going on the court and how they are adjusting or not adjusting to what coach is saying. Mm-hmm. So I got better at vocalizing certain things and talking to my teammates. I was a shyer, introverted freshman coming in. I didn't say much, but when I was able to play, I made a difference on the court. I was valuable, a value to the team. So long story short, get onto the bench. So things I focused on were repeating what coach was wanting. If it was a simple play and they're out on the court, just repeating. Okay, being that echo of, hey, we're gonna go on 2-3, or we're running slash or slip or whatever we're running. Right. And then if anybody missed any information in the timeouts, making sure I'm listening for that certain person. You know, it's a timeout. People over at the Gatorade stand, and if they don't know, look, if they're coming out, they don't know what's going on. So I'm like, hey, did you hear? She said we doing this and this and this. They're like, okay, cool. And just that energy though. If at the end of the day, if I couldn't lead and be very purposeful with my leadership and coaching, it was always the hype man. It was always energy. It was always keeping people upbeat that were playing in the game, and then keeping everybody else that was on the bench having fun and engaged in the game too. So yeah, I had to learn how to be a better teammate, which was fine. That actually helped me for my leadership roles as co-captain in the next few years. So junior and senior year, I was co-captain.
Right. Those are some amazing points, because those are things that are invaluable, and those are things that not everybody can do. Some people are truly leaders by example. Some people truly only can lead vocally, but to get a mashup of both, where you can go out there and actually go through the practices and go through the exercises and do what you're preaching and then vocalize it while you're playing, it's not as easy as what everyone makes it sound like. So the fact that you were able to take those injuries in those moments where you couldn't physically be out in the action, mm-hmm. and revamp and add to your leadership ability, that takes a completely different mindset, because you have no chance of getting in the game, and there's nothing worse than sitting on the bench knowing you can't get in the game, right? But yeah, you're still finding a way to make yourself valuable to the team, so you don't just so you can stay engaged for your learning purposes, but also getting everybody else engaged as you go through sophomore, junior, senior year, helping the underclassmen, helping them learn the system, helping the people on the bench stay engaged. So that way, when they get in the game, they know exactly what's going on. They know what the calls are. They know what to look for. Something that I got when I was in that situation, something that I got really good at, outside of being the energy and the upbeat vibe of the bench, is when I was in college more so, we had to sit guards post. I don't know if you guys had that breakdown on your bench, but we had to sit in a certain way. And so because I was always sitting by the guards, I was able to see things on the court and talk to the other guards who were able to go in and play and share with them what I'm seeing on the court. So when they get in the game, they can be effective. Like you see, like if, for an example, if you are a three-point shooter and based on how the scouting report is and based on how the team is guarding other three-point shooters, you can point out, hey, look, she's consistently going over the screen because she knows you're a three-point shooter. Maybe you should try faking going over, take one step and shoot it. Or maybe you should really tap into your mid-range game. And because she's going so hard over the screen, utilize taking that extra escape dribble and driving hard at the basket. Utilize your post player and tell them to slip because they know you're a strong three-point shooter. So giving different coaching advice on how to play over a screen, how to play on defense, things like that, based on what I'm seeing, can help keep the other guards on the bench engaged. And that's another form of leadership. That's another way of you mentally staying engaged because now you're really understanding how to read screens better, but also you're helping the next person read the screen better so when they get in, they can be effective.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do from the bench. So you have to make yourself useful. Was there any of that type of communication as well going on your bench whenever you were sitting out and rehabbing and things like that?
Oh, of course. Even in practice. So side note, I also being hurt, anybody that was hurt, we had to be prepared for the game like we were going to play. You mentioned scouting report. And when we had a pregame or that game day breakfast, when we're talking about the scouting report, it don't matter if you hurt and you can't play. You better be able to answer them questions about
right.
Or we all in trouble.
Except you don't have to run the sprints.
And now I can't run. I might be on 100 push-ups though.
Right.
But yeah, so we had to stay engaged because of the scouting report as well. But I think I wanted to point out what you were saying as far as having that what's the word? Conversation on the bench. You are still building that team camaraderie and that team trust and rapport with the girls that are on the bench in the same way with the girls that are playing or they play most of the game, right? If they feel like, you know, it's hard work sometimes to it feels very hard work to be out there for 30 plus minutes. It's very tough mentally. But when you have teammates that are engaged and on the bench and they have that person, the players that are playing have their back, the players that are playing feel like, okay, my teammates got my back. They're gonna give me some feedback. They're gonna let me know I can't figure this out. She's playing tight on the screen. I'm not making the good reads. They're gonna have something for me. So when they come off the bench and they ask, yo, what can I do? What should I do? She done stole it a couple times and then hey, just do this and do that. Think about also that skip when you drive, Erica's open in the corner. Yep. Maybe you hit Erica a couple times, she's gonna knock it down, and then they're gonna play out on her, so that gap's gonna be a little bit more open. Yep. You know, so that you're building a lot of team trust, whether you're playing or whether you're not. You are also building trust with your coaches. Your coaches are testing and watching you. They put you into leadership positions. They'll say, hey, you're in charge. If you're on the bench, you're going to be in charge of rebounds for the post players, or you're in charge of turnovers. We better not have more than 10 going into halftime. Start erasing them. Look, like you can't control it because you're on the bench, you don't play, but you really feel like, oh shoot, I gotta stay engaged. Right. Did I answer your question? I might have went off topic.
No, that's good. I mean, whatever advice that you can give just is helpful across the board because no one handles injuries the same way. No one, if you're getting injured for the first time, you don't really know what to think, what to feel because it's your first injury. So any advice that you can give to help keep somebody who's injured engaged is exactly what we're looking for in this conversation. And to all of the people, all of the athletes that are out there, understand that the bench players and the role players are so important to the team. Just because you don't start does not mean that you aren't important to the outcome of the game. It does not mean that you're not important to the team. It doesn't matter. If you are on the bench, if you are on the team, you are just as important, just as valuable to helping the team succeed. So you have to stay locked in. Think about an analogy when one of the star players foul out the game. Who does the coach look to? Anybody sitting on the bench. Think about the relief pitchers in baseball. Think about if somebody gets hurt, unfortunately, and it's a crucial point in the game. Well, the coach is there's assistant coaches there keeping track of who has been engaged in the game, who has been focused, who has been playing well. And the only way to play well is to be engaged. And the only way to be engaged is to know what's going on in the court, know your scouting report, have confidence in yourself, trust in what your coach's system and what they're teaching. All of those things go into who the coach chooses to put in the game at crucial moments or at times when somebody fouls out, whatever the case may be. So the bench players are just as important as the starters because those could be the players that actually carry the team over to win. Just because you start doesn't mean that you're gonna be in the game when the game is on the line.
Starting, it doesn't mean.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I was just gonna add. Starting. A lot of players put starting on the pedestal.
Mm-hmm.
Our rotation changed.
Mm-hmm.
Coach wasn't worried about who was starting.
Yep.
It depended on your output, your consistency, your skill level as a player. But then also depending on who we played. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I didn't start because the other team had 2 6'3", 6'4" girls. Well, shoot, don't start me. I'm 6 foot, but I'm really 5'11". I'm coming off the bench though. Let me assess it. So, let me know how to take these giants down.
Right.
Okay. Right. So, and I've been there too. You might have been there. I've been there too when my spot was taken. But it was like sometimes when I look back, I'm like, so I wasn't rebounding like the way I should have. And then I think coach was trying to prepare me because in about 3 or 4 games we're gonna play a real tough team. She might have been trying to get me amped up, like, you know what I'm saying? Yep. Coaches do that stuff. They test you. They put you in situations to see how you're going to react. They try to do things to prepare you to work harder and just be prepared for a game down the line. Mm-hmm. Or maybe even the first conference game. We still in preseason playing out of conference teams. They just do some crazy stuff. And
they do.
If they know how to push your buttons and you're a competitor, it'll work.
It'll work.
Hey, Coach, I had a couple things I wanted to touch on.
Go ahead.
We were talking earlier. So we were talking about the moment when whether it's your first injury or second or third, in those moments where you're like, okay, I injured myself and I'm out for a certain amount. Those feelings that initially rush up and you're like, woe is me and why is this happening to me? Why now? I encourage people to not overlook those feelings. It's important to go through that phase and feel what you are feeling. Acknowledge that you're scared. Acknowledge that you're irritated. Acknowledge that you're hurt in your heart because, dang, I might have just came back from an injury. Now I got to sit out a little bit more. Hey, I say acknowledge those feelings, but don't allow yourself to camp out and just stay in that moment where you're thinking about the negative. Mm-hmm. It's like, dang, I got to do this again. Man, I'm mad I'm going to be missing the state tournament. Okay, yes, that's real. It's real. It's real life. Now we got to move on. Okay, so now what's my plan look like? And get really positive and get involved with the plan. What's my everyday look like? What's my day weekly? What's my monthly look like? Maybe even 3-month check-in if I have a longer time of recovery, like a ACL of months.
ACL, yep.
Right? Just chip away at it and chomp at the bit, but enjoy that. Try to enjoy that. Yeah. I learned a lot about my body by more so being at UT by asking questions. Our massage therapists, our chiropractors, our athletic trainers, I saw them a lot. So I was like, well, why is this muscle turned off? I just saw you like 3 days ago. So what is that muscle? How do I make it stronger? Why do I walk like this? Or why do I walk like this when you guys want me to walk straighter? Like, I'm like, why? What muscle is that? What does it do? How do I jump? You know what I'm saying? So, and it kind of led me into my career today, but also it makes you smarter. And if you go on to play a smarter player, if you go on to play pro, you kind of know how your body is. You know how to vocalize and talk about what the things that you want. What do you want from a chiropractor? What are you looking for? Sorry. What are you looking for from? I can't talk right now. It's only Tuesday. Massage therapist when you go overseas. There's the language barrier, and then you got to know what muscles they're trained on specific terms of the muscles, right? So you also got to have those muscles in English so you can translate them to Romanian or Swedish, so you know what you're talking about and they can get the picture. Right. So yes, you can see I've had all that. But yeah, I want people and athletes to know that I was not always confident when I had an injury. Yeah, sometimes I was like, can I do this? Can I do this again? So after I tore my ACL once, the second time is like, I know I got through the first one. Can I do this again? Like, can I really 8 to 12 months? Really? You go through that. That's the woe is me. That's that little, time in the middle where you're like,
yeah,
you're like, you want to throw a fit, like a baby, and then you move on.
Right.
Yeah. And then my last one before we get to the next question is when you're going through your rehab stages, force yourself to really master those levels or those stages that you are at. If you're working on flexibility, do flexibility. Don't be trying to jump, hop, shuffle. Like, don't do extra stuff, because once you force your body to do something that it's not ready for, you end up adding time to their end recovery goal or the maximum time. So if it's only with stretching and flexibility and getting your range of motion back, just do that, focus on that so it is superb before you go on to the next stage.
That's great advice. Staying on track with your rehab and staying where you're supposed to be at the level you're supposed to be at, so that way you're not skipping and you don't actually make it worse. I love that. I really do, because I know that happens. Everyone's rushing to get back, and it's like, hey, basketball's not going anywhere. Football's not going anywhere. Like, your sport is not going anywhere.
The sprints aren't going anywhere.
Man, they sure aren't. They still gonna be there waiting for you.
Hey, piled up.
Take your time, be in the moment. Learn what you're supposed to learn from rehab, grow how you're supposed to grow from rehab, because there's a lesson in every single thing. There's a reason for everything, and we don't always have to figure out the reason right then and there. So stay in that moment, continue to focus on what it is that particular rehab session is for. I love that. And just to kind of piggyback off of something else you said about missing the state tournament, my junior year of high school, I tore my meniscus 2 games before state, or before the playoffs started. 2 games before the playoffs started. And I was devastated. I tried everything in my power to say, no, my knee is fine. I can play. I could barely walk. I was limping around the house. I'm like, no, I'm good. I can play. Hey, you're not playing. And the thing is, the recovery time for a meniscus is like a month. It's like 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But because of when it happened in the season, I ran out of time, really. Yeah. And so, but, was able to come back. And so I had to let that frustration go, so I could really focus on rehabbing my body and getting stronger for my senior season. Because, in high school, there is no red shirts. 4 years, because, if you fail, you pretty much aren't playing anyway. So you get 4 years to showcase what you have in high school. So definitely wanted to make sure that my senior season, I came back stronger than ever. So the timing of injuries can also play a factor into how you mentally process your injury. If it happens at the beginning of the season and maybe you have a 2 or 3 month recovery, you may have a chance to come back that season. But if it happens toward the end, that changes how you think about it.
Yeah.
And that, or if it happens in the middle and you have to sit out the remainder of the season, those things also factor in how you process your injury, how you approach your rehab. Some people, I've seen some people actually be able to continue to play through the injury to a certain with like limited minutes and things like that. But
Yeah.
you have to be very careful and listen to your body and listen to the advice of your trainers, of your doctors, because that's not always recommended. Not everybody's body can handle that. And so you just have to really be mindful of the longevity of your career versus the right now. If you're in high school, you have a long career ahead of you. Take care of your body. Your body is younger. You have a higher probability of healing way better than when you're, in your 30s and your 40s and you're still playing. Your body doesn't quite recover and heal the same way. The aches and bruises and pains look different as you get older. So take care of your body as much as you can while you go through these injuries. Get stronger, get better, get mentally better, and then progress forward, because your career can be very long or it can be very short depending on how you handle the injuries when you're younger and earlier in your career. And that is very, very real. That's why sometimes you hear about these athletes who get hurt and you never hear from them again. That injury really could have just zapped everything out of them and they just couldn't recover from that. And then you hear about athletes who get injured multiple times and they're still playing. It's a mentality, it's a mindset, it's how they approach their rehab, it's the people they had around them, not just their doctors and their trainers, but also the family, the friends, the teammates, the coaches, the mentors. How are they building you up in your injury? How are they focusing on keeping you positive and keeping you going in the right direction for your rehab? And all of those pieces are just as important as going through the physical rehab. And so, Coach, I don't know if you have anything to say on that before we get into the next question, but I know I said a lot of stuff, so I want to give you a chance to respond.
Yeah, I was just writing down a quick note about approach. So for all the athletes, but I want to really talk to the college athletes and especially the professional athletes. Professional, you are on your own. You need to be the resource, find the resources on your own to make sure that you are keeping your body as strong as you can keep it, stay healthy. And if you are hurt or become hurt, find the best doctors. It's your job to take on that responsibility to vet your surgeons, to find different modalities and different rehab exercises, and then just different types of recovery therapies, right? So what I mean is, in college, I had a massage, chiropractor, a Rosti, what else? Different little TENS units and things like that we used, ultrasound, we all had that. And then when I was in college, when I was started to play pro, I had some other issues come up with my knee. And I was like, okay, the things that I was able to do in college, they got me so far. So I kept exploring options for my knee pain. And when I say exploring, I was picking up rocks, opening doors. I'm like, okay, so what do you do? Let me go try them. As a professional player, you have got to spend money on finding and exploring what therapies are going to be the best for you, what type of strength coach is going to be the best for you. If you're thinking about playing at all, definitely more than 2 or 3 years, 5-year career, 7, 10, 15, you've got to put aside a little bit of money to say, hey, I'm going to use this for my massage, or I'm going to use this for acupuncture, which I love. That's my number 2. My number 3 is massage, and then my number 1 is a electrical modality called the Newbie. I found that about 3 years into my career after having multiple knee surgeries, 2 ACLs, a couple of scopes, shoulder surgery, and just having all the wear and tear of playing basketball since we were 10 years old.
Yeah, or younger. Yeah.
And I tell you, I was at my wit's end in that 2012, 2013 on my knee pain and trying to find something that would give me some benefits, like give me some relief. I found a guy named Garrett Salpeter here in Austin, just 10 minutes down the road from UT. And it was such a godsend, such a blessing to find him. He has a electrical new therapy called the Newbie. I have a machine. I use it on my athletes here, and I use it on my mom, myself. And this electrical machine, you are able to use it and map yourself and diagnose yourself and say, hey, what muscles in my body or my nervous system are not receiving force. They're not absorbing force like they should. I can find the origin of my pain or my lack of performance. If I don't have pain, my lack of performance. Let's say I have a vertigo of 40 and I'm only able to get like 37 and I'm feeling really good. I'm doing as best as I can. There's something that is inhibiting me from releasing that power that I already have in me. I found him. I worked for a summer. You know how we come home in the summer, maybe 3 to 4 months if we're lucky, 4 months. Consistently twice a week, sometimes 3. I was on that machine for about an hour with him and doing rehab. When I first went to him, and all I did was these assisted squats with the machine on me. It's like a little TENS unit. It's like a TENS unit. It's way powerful. It works different from the TENS unit that we had in college, which is kind of just AC current. This is on a DC current. It's the same current we have in our body. I'm telling you this, it's the Newbie. Look up NeuFit, NEUFIT, the Newbie, NEUBIE. If you're a professional player, if you are a college player, look for a practitioner in your area that knows how to use this machine. It is going to add years onto your career. I added 3 to 4 seasons onto my career. I should have been probably done in 2012, 2013. I played until 17, 18. And I had knees was knocking.
Can you spell out, I know you said the Newbie machine. What was the other one that you mentioned?
NeuFit is the company, NEUFIT.
And they're the company that makes the Newbie machine?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They're in Austin. Headquarters is in Austin. Yeah.
Just writing down the notes so I can put it in the chat so everybody else can look into it. Company that makes the Newbie machine. Yep. Okay, good deal. Well, thank you for sharing that because I was definitely going to ask about how that works when you have injuries and you're overseas. I did play overseas, but I didn't have any injuries, so I didn't necessarily go through that experience. So thank you for sharing information about the Newbie and the NeuFit company that makes that machine and just your experience with it. And hopefully that helps give some more guidance to the athletes that do want to play pro, because as you leave college where you are like in a bubble almost and you're the center of, you know, your trainer's attention and you have doctors on hand and you don't really have to do anything but show up for injuries. As you go and show up for your rehab when you have injuries, as you go to that professional level, especially overseas at the professional level, there are a lot of barriers and challenges that arise where you, just like you're saying, you have to know exactly what you're talking about and be able to translate that information and be able to ask specifically for what you need to make sure that you're getting the rehab and the help that you need to either stay injury free, or if you're dealing with some discomfort, it doesn't hinder you and get worse, or if you actually have an injury, being able to go to the team doctor or find a doctor that will help get you back to the level at which you can play. And that's not always easy. It can be intimidating. It can be nerve-wracking. But if you really understand your body and you understand how you rehabbed in the past and you remember those exercises, you can do those exercises overseas because you remember what you went through when you were feeling this kind of pain or that kind of pain in this area. What will make my shoulders stronger or my upper body stronger? What will give me more range of motion all of those things. And so because that looks so different overseas from college, even from high school, when maybe you're going to a family doctor or you have a lot of people who can recommend this doctor, that doctor, specialist, you have to be very mindful as you go overseas, not just with injuries, but just in general. You have to be so mindful and you have to take care of yourself for the longevity of your career, because things move so fast and they move players in and out so fast, not to scare anyone, but that's just the nature of the business. It's all about winning. And when you come over as an American and you come over as a top player, there are certain expectations that go with that. And keeping yourself healthy is high on that list, from your diet to injuries to how much you work out on your own, how much you engage and help the team be successful. All of those things are so important for your career overseas. And so what, I know you said that everything was all on you when it came to injuries. Can you maybe explain? Well, you kind of already explained it, so I'm not gonna. I really was gonna ask, what are the differences in regards to the treatment and rehab that you did in college versus when you were overseas? But you kind of dibbled and dabbled in that. I don't know if you have anything to expand on it, but you kind of talked about it with your last answer.
So the differences between the rehab.
Yeah.
I learned different ways when I met Garrett Salpeter. I learned different exercises.
Okay.
So I learned different exercises and different ways to do exercises. So if you take a lunge, just say you have to do a lunge, just regular down and up, down and up. Instead of having me do a lunge, he would have me pull myself into a lunge position, trying to get lower, 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 and longer and longer. It's called an isometric hold. So I'm holding for time, and instead of how we brace, like if you're just holding a lunge, we tend to brace, and we're actually pushing ourselves up into that position with our quads instead of pulling into position with our hamstrings and allowing our quads to lengthen on the top. It was just, what I learned was the more details of how an exercise is supposed to be executed. I will say that.
Okay.
I learned a lot, and I'm telling you, well, this is my experience, and it's just what it is. Compared to in college, my rehab with Garrett, with and without the newbie, was way harder than it was in college, because he executes certain exercises different. So instead of just squatting, instead of just bench pressing, right? We're trying to keep time under tension. We're trying to lengthen muscles. So for a bench press, I'm not just gonna bench, right? I'm going to hold at my lowest position. I'm gonna hold there, because what I'm doing is stretching my pecs. Or I'm gonna hold at the top for time, right? And I'm going to slowly control those muscles down to that bench press to my chest and then pop it up.
Right.
So the execution was different. That's it. And it was so much harder when you try to push your muscles to hold for a longer time than like 30 seconds or a minute, or you try to move slowly and very controlled with a maximal contraction into a certain position. It's tough. I cried.
Yeah. Wow. No, that makes so much sense, because when I was in Poland, the way that they went about lifting weights was so different than how we lifted weights in the States. Everything is, you want more weight, you want to get bigger, and they had a much slower way of doing things. A lot of isometrics, a lot of holds, a lot of individual pulses, like a lot of pulses, things like that. They train and tune their body so much differently than the way we do in college. And I don't know if it's because their style of play looks different, or if it's just they have just learned that works better for the longevity of the career. But yes, like now that I really think about it, and you mentioned some of these ISO holds, that's exactly how we lifted weights. And I'm like, why aren't we just, benching
Did you hate it?
115, 120, and then we move on up? Like, why aren't we doing that? And they do things very differently.
Did you hate those holds?
Yes.
Like I'm telling you, I'm like a wall squat. Think about a wall squat, holding that for like a minute. I'm like,
but why?
I'm about to cry.
Let me just do my 10 squats real quick.
Yeah, it's very different. Yeah, very different.
Very different styles of play, very different ways of training the body from college to professional when you go overseas. So, I mean, we're pretty much at time, and I've truly enjoyed this conversation. I really hope that we've given some insight on injuries, the mentality, sort of what your body goes through, transitioning from high school to college to pros. And injuries are just a part of the game.
Yep.
If you're competitive and you're playing hard and you play a sport, some people can go their whole career and never have an injury, and some people go their whole career and they're injury ridden. And it's just really a matter of how do you mentally bounce back? How do you mentally put yourself in position to continue to be relevant, to continue to be great in your sport, whether you're helping from the sidelines, whether you're helping in practice, whether you're getting those mental reps in practice, because mental reps are just as important when you can't physically be on the court. Are you mentally going into each rehab session with the right mindset and the understanding of, this is what we're focusing on today. I have to be the best at this today because this is the next step to getting back into the playing surface. So I really appreciate the conversation. I don't know if you have any last thoughts.
Me too. I had fun today. I don't know. Last thoughts. I wanted to kind of add on to, I think I had said, what did I say about being overseas? You're on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Just you have to have that mentality overseas. For the girls and guys that are playing ball overseas, you have to have that mentality just in case your team doesn't have enough money for a strength coach or certain chiropractors, massage people that you need. You just got to go find it. You have to be very resourceful and go find those people in your town, or go to the nearest town that has those types of therapies and individuals and specialists. I had to do that everywhere I went, and it just became natural. I played in Romania, and I played in a city called Targoviste. That was about an hour out of Bucharest, which is the capital. Once or twice a week, just to get a massage that I needed, that I liked on the standard that my body needed, my knees needed. I had to take a bus early in the morning. I'm like, talk about 6:30 leave. Get down there, took about an hour and 15 on the bus because we had all those extra stops. You know how it is overseas. They make extra stops in the smaller towns, which is fine. But yeah, I pieced it together and I figured it out, because when you want to succeed, that's the things that you have to do. And if there's certain people that, if people won't help you, or if they can't help you, you just got to do it yourself. So that's what I mean by you're on your own. Have that mentality to go get it.
Absolutely. I could not have said it better myself. Well, Coach, I want to thank you for, again, being on the show tonight and talking through injuries. And we will be back next week for the third part of our 4-part series. We'll be talking about those transition periods, going from high school to college to pros. How do you prepare mentally? How do you prepare physically? Dealing with coaching changes, all of that. We're really going to be living in the transition periods next year. Not next year. We'll be living in transition periods next week. Before I sign off, I do want to give a little shout out. I am a part of a youth girls football league here in Houston, Texas, and we are putting on an event October 24th at Bayland Park from 10 to 3 to honor, remember, and celebrate those lives impacted by cancer. So if you have been impacted by cancer, you know someone who's really a close relative, a close friend who has been impacted by cancer, we want you to come out to the park. It's a free event, and we're going to be honoring and celebrating. We have I Cheer For cards that you can fill out and post on social media and just spend time honoring celebrating and remembering those people. If you are not in the Houston area, we still have ways for you to get involved. We have partnered with the NFL and their Youth Crucial Catch initiative. So through there, what happens is any money that gets donated goes directly to the American Cancer Society to help raise awareness, talk about education, get information out there about pre-screening, because the earlier you catch cancer, the earlier and the better opportunity you have to recover from it and get it completely removed from the body. So that's really the initiative that we are pushing strong for this month of October, Cancer Awareness Month. So I will drop the GoFundMe link in the chat here. I will also post the flyer. Please share. Please donate to the American Cancer Society. You can do that directly. We don't get any of the profits. All proceeds go straight to American Cancer Society. But we wanted to take this time out as a youth football league to partner with the NFL in the Youth Crucial Catch Initiative program and do our part in the community to raise awareness. So that is something else that I have going on. Coach, I'll send you that information as well. Maybe you can swing down and talk to some people.
Okay.
But yeah, that's the other thing that I have going on right now on my end. So again, Coach, thank you for tonight, and we will see everyone next week. Coach, stay on as we sign off. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Have a great night.